This vanilla ice cream is the world's first food made from plastic waste. The University of Edinburgh, the process harnesses the power of bacteria and expands
From job applications, content creation, content consumption, art, and even dating. Every single thing we do is intertwined with technology. Instead of interacting with people, meeting organically, sharing art and video through word of mouth, or pulling those bootstraps up and walking into the office to shake the boss's hand when applying for that job you want so bad, there is now a monolithic AI middleman that determines whether you are worthy of even being seen by another human being. Let's take a step back for a second. There currently exists on this earth a cycle of AI bots creating AI content. Then this content is watched by AI bots to increase its viewership and ELO in the algorithm so that more bots can see it and eventually maybe some human eyes, which in turn is just a method of advertising garbage. It's quite literally just a cycle of AI systems wasting energy to send slop in a never-ending loop. This is the type of world we are currently building. Technology, instead of being used to enhance the human experience, is being used to destroy it. I can't help but take a step back and witness this from the third person as we move deeper and deeper into this algorithmic anti-human abyss, and I'm honestly just starting to ask the question, who the fuck are we even building this world for anymore? Now, before we get into what caused me to make this video in the first place, I do want to state that I know that the current algorithm has a lot of good characteristics when it comes to YouTube, and it does tend to select for quality over the previous era of clickbait, although both still are quite important. There still are very high quality videos made on this platform, and brand new channels blow up that may have never blown up with the old system. But I also do wonder how much of that boils down to raw luck. I'm sure there are equivalent or better videos that for some reason never get blasted into the stratosphere by the algorithm. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about when you spot that one random video from a brand new channel hitting millions of views. This topic has been on my mind for quite some time now, but the catalyst that made me decide to make a video on this happened while I was interacting with this comment thread on King Nidhogg's community tab. Nidhogg is a League of Legends content creator, which is unrelated to the video topic, but what is relevant is the content of the post and how it perfectly exemplifies how much YouTubers must min-max the algorithm to even have their content seen in the first place. I'm not critiquing this behavior at all, it clearly makes sense. It's just the direction the platform has gone, and when you want to create content for a platform, you are forced into min-maxing the algorithm, or you may as well just give it up. If anything, I'm critiquing the fact that people who are trying to create content have to obsess over trivial things like whether or not to adjust their upload time by 1 or 2 hours in the first place. Why is that something that a content creator should even have to think about? I know YouTube claims that the upload time doesn't matter and that a video has about 24 hours to get accurately placed into the algorithm, but my intuition and experience tells me they're full of shit, and most content creators on YouTube would probably tell you the same thing. Reading through this thread, I found myself relating. Even though my channel is small, it feels like gaming the algorithm to its maximum is half of the battle. You can upload the same video to 2 identical channels and one can randomly blow up while the other flatlines at 10 views. Recently, I've had a TikTok video blow up and get 700,000 views and still climbing. Yet, anytime I've tried to upload the same video on YouTube, it flatlines. Of course, I don't do this as my main source of revenue or anything, but I found myself thinking how much I kind of hate this, to be honest. When I started thinking about how I'm going to min-max the algorithms, I just realized I'd much rather swing a hammer at the ground for 12 hours a day. At least that provides some sort of value and I don't have to juggle 15 robotic algorithms min-maxing 500 different random settings and keywords just so my content gets seen. There is also an additional effect that the new algorithm has been having on YouTube, and that is the Beastification effect. And by that I mean the style and trend of the content. Mr. Beast became the biggest YouTuber on the platform by developing a certain style that maximizes audience retention, but the ripple effect has spawned an insane amount of copycats. The videos are spastically edited to have as much retention possible, with constant reminders to make sure you don't stop watching until the end. Let's take a step back and wonder what saying "keep watching till the end" really adds to the video. Is this some profound statement or some type of point being portrayed? No, it really is nothing. When you boil it down, it really is just a plea from the creator begging the audience not to click off the video so the video doesn't get obliterated in the algorithm. The other style is video essay. It's almost every guy, including me right now, is making a video essay. The platform is absolutely packed with these video essays uploaded on the most pointless niche topics, and half of the time the video runs for 40 minutes regurgitating vague, pointless talking points and constantly reminding you how they will explain it later, only to say the same thing but slightly differently. Don't get me wrong, there is still insane content on this platform like Ish's Minecraft Civilizations video, as well as many of the history documentaries, but largely the platform is being filled with slop. I wouldn't even be surprised if half of these video essays are ghost written by ChatGPT. It really is a depressing reality. The way we find content is also completely different. Before, YouTube videos would go viral by being passed around via word of mouth or sharing. Now it's entirely dependent on ticking all of the boxes of the algorithm and your video will explode into the stratosphere. We've removed the human sharing element and replaced it with an AI middleman. And it doesn't just end with long form content. The short form content is even worse. Half of the content on the internet now seems like it's completely AI generated. Not only that, but short form content is a passive experience. At least with long form content, you have to actively click something. With short form, it just feeds you an endless loop of slot that's perfectly wired to click with your psychology. Many of the complaints in the previous long form section also apply to short form content, so there's no sense repeating it again. I'm simply trying to make the case that with online content, there's an AI algorithmic middleman in between humans and content. That really is the premise of the video. Every single aspect of our lives has an AI middleman in the way, and it's starting to piss me off, honestly. Placating the algorithm is more important than making something for humans. Perhaps this section is a bit more of a reach than the other sections, as there's technically no AI middleman with game design per se, but I'd like to make the case, and especially with multiplayer games, that game design that is too data driven almost begins to resemble these ideas even if humans are the ones implementing the design elements based on the data. For a time period, it got to a point where most mainstream games were beginning to suck all the fun out of the game and replace it with never-ending task lists of slop such as world quests and WoW. Because on paper, that type of content had good engagement, despite the fact that these games kind of force you to do it if you wanted to continue playing. Thankfully though, in recent years, it seems like we are moving away from this data-driven game development philosophy. But for a time that I would intuitively recall being around 2015 to 2022, this game design philosophy was everywhere. I can recall a story by Riot August, where in early League of Legends, they were trying to balance summoner spells and were discussing the removal of the summoner spell Flash. By all metrics, the summoner spell is OP and has by far the highest use, disproportionately so. So at the time, the designers were discussing its removal, and somehow the entire team missed this key question that was brought up by one of the other developers.
I'll tell you a story. Way back in the early days of League of Legends, Flash was OP and everybody was taking Flash. And there's a conversation between designers about removing it. It was just like, hey, this is too OP, there's no way to really balance it. There's no way to balance the spell, so it needs to be removed so that there's real choices in the summoner spell system so that not everybody just has Flash. And there was a designer at the time, the designer who made Lux, who just asked a very good question. And the question she asked was like, hey, well, is the game not better with Flash? We're talking about removing it for all these reasons, these design reasons, choice in summoner spells, make sure not everybody has a dash, all those things. But let's ask the opposite question of, well, in a world where there's less choice in summoner spells and everybody has this dash, is the game better when everybody has this flashy dashy thing? The answer that was come to was yes, the game is significantly better and more enjoyable. And so while Flash does compete against things like summoner spells choice, and it does compete against things like a character like Twitch never having a dash, the other end of that thing is good for the game. The game is just more fun, more exciting, more enjoyable with Flash in it.
That question is why the summoner spell is still in the game. The flash combos you can do make League of Legends a better game. Things such as the insect, where you R-flash combo someone on Lee Sin, would not even have existed if flash would have been removed, amongst many other flash combos. Had the developers have gone ahead and removed flash because the data was suggesting that it was OP, they arguably could have made League of Legends a worse game. I also think retail World of Warcraft followed this game design philosophy for a very long time. It was especially prevalent in Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands with their borrowed power systems like artifact power. I don't have any conclusive statements or data because I'm too lazy to research it, and all of my information is presented to me through divine revelation, so I don't need any sources. But I distinctly remember from that time WoW devs talking about data showcasing increased player retention and engagement rates, despite large falloffs in player counts and many people anecdotally claiming online that they were sick and burning out of this type of content. I think these expansions did a good job at retaining a certain style of bug man who constantly needs dopamine juice reward mechanism gameplay in his face and something to work towards in a video game because they don't have any interesting ambitions in their real life. I'd say that this data-driven game design style kept a certain specific type of player subscribed for the entirety of the expansion, but many of the more normal players such as myself just couldn't be fucked to deal with all that boring slop grind, and we just quit and played games that were more fun instead of doing world quests and mob souls for 500 hours a day just to raid. You know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. I know many people that quit in these expansions, and I was included among them who quit playing because I couldn't stand grinding the arbitrary power bullshit. Once I had my fun with launch, I wanted to be able to just log in and play the game without being forced into grinds weekly that I didn't want to do or risk falling behind. Later on with Dragonflight, they finally learned that maybe this borrowed power retention, infinite grind, data-driven game design strategy has its flaws, and they've begun correcting course, which is why you hear much more positive feedback regarding the game systems generally speaking. Unfortunately, the game is probably just too far gone. The narrative and art style of World of Warcraft has been corrupted by a concentrated dose of soy. I won't go into it any more than this, as I have a few recent videos complaining about this topic. Now for the most relevant to the general populace, labor and dating. So we're taking a move away from content creation and entertainment and move into two of the most quintessential human elements being taken entirely over by AI systems. We'll start with labor. By this I mean simply working. To work, one must find a job. To find a job, one must apply for a job. But in the modern world, pulling up your bootstraps, marching into a building, and speaking with someone face to face and asking for work is almost non-existent. It has been completely replaced with online applications. The vast majority of these companies that take applications online have some sort of AI system that will scan a resume for keywords, and if it doesn't detect the right type of words, it will throw the resume in the trash, never to be seen by human eyes. This is a completely dehumanizing process. And instead of presenting who you are, what you stand for, the values you have, and the skills you can bring, instead, like with content creation, you have to sit there and think to yourself about every job. I wonder what keywords they are using for their resume system. Why should that even be a thought that has to go through my head when I want to apply? Why, when I want to work, should I have to be thinking about some fucking robot AI middleman programmed by Jeets? I understand the volume of resumes is massive, but this wasn't a problem 60 years ago. And HR departments are bigger and more bloated than they have ever been. What the hell are these HR ladies even doing all day? I'm beginning to think the TikToks of women working where they spend 1 hour in meetings every day and 7 hours gossiping and going for brunch is actually real. That might actually be what is happening at these women workplaces. They have these massive bloated departments yet somehow are less efficient at processing resumes than we were 60 years ago. It makes total sense why so many young males are just checking out of all of this bullshit when job applications are like a mixture of figuring out what keywords you must use to bypass the AI resume trasher only to have your resume trashed by an HR lady like she's swiping left on a dating app. This isn't the end though. When you actually do get employed, you're required to completely castrate your personality. Otherwise, you'll get henpecked to death by the women you are forced to share an office with. There is a reason why men and women had separate spaces, and that women were historically excluded from certain male spaces, including even bars. This may be off topic, but we have never been allowed to exist as men without having an endless barrage of moral henpecking from society at large. This is unprecedented, and it seems like it's been exclusive to our generation. Speaking of which, the next topic is dating apps. We can see the trend of how people meet shifting from bars, mutuals, or family into being heavily dominated by these horrible dating apps. Every single one of these apps uses an algorithm to determine if you're a Chad or a Chud and places you accordingly. Instead of letting your personality shine through a big group of mutual friends where the social proofing has already been completed, removing that fear of the unknown from each other's mind, you now must subject yourself to a superficial rating of hundreds of people and have the algorithm determine who you see and who you don't. But it's even worse than that. The glorification of a modern American dating culture via Hollywood films where the random girl and guy have a crazy, spontaneous romance after just meeting and live happily ever after almost never ends up working out that way in the end. At most, it's 2 weeks or something like that, only for one party to ghost and never contact again, leading to the increased polarization and disenfranchisement of both men and women with dating. Before this new world order of dating had captured the world, most cultures set their children up with others known to their family. For example, my father would set me up with a girl that's a family friend. We'd go on a date, and if we didn't like each other, we'd part ways amicably. If I were to fuck around with her feelings or lead her on to the point where I get in her pants and then toss her away after I'm bored, I'd end up getting the shit beat out of me by the men of her family, and likely my own father as well. Instead, we're now quote-unquote free to use and discard each other for our own machinations. This may be my most controversial take, but I think arranged marriage is honestly better. I seriously think dating is just completely boring. If you go the sociopath route and sleep with double-digit different women, the whole process just becomes a chore of doing the same thing over and over again with different people just to get a nut in, and then you repeat the process yet again. The cycle repeats itself too, because after so much of this, neither men or women become capable of properly pair bonding, leading to a state of apathy. In my opinion, pseudo-arranged marriages are a much healthier and superior method of finding a partner. People should be married off from 18 to 22 and build a life together. This feminist and even red pill bullshit of men sleeping around with 500 girls is generally retarded. But sadly, it's the only way you can win as a man in the modern dating world, else you'd be made a sucker. Everything we've just talked about has been made exponentially worse by technology, and has exacerbated every single one of these issues. Technology was supposed to make our lives better, but it rarely feels that way these days, and you can make the argument that our social, mental, and physical well-being are being made objectively worse by it. That's not to say it's all bad though. Of course, certain aspects are great improvements to our lives, and technology is providing a great opportunity for creative independence to shine through their own merit that may not have been able to make it in a more formal setting. But I believe the current obsession and trend we now have with putting anti-human algorithms in between us is getting to a dangerous level. I find it honestly exhausting at this point to even think about doing anything relating to technology. I think this is why channels like Outdoor Boys or Homesteading are beginning to appeal to people more and more. Everyone is getting fatigued with being mandated into interacting with this algorithmic AI HP Lovecraftian monstrosity, and are fantasizing of a more simple natural life, of having a family, raising animals, growing food, and spending more times outdoors or with their family. A large part of why people are being pushed towards the screen in the West is the way our culture and cities are designed, but perhaps that is a topic for another video. In any regards, I hope we can correct course in the future. I do think we need to begin asking arguably the most important question of our time: who are we building this world for, man or machine? Shit.